Thank you, everyone, for joining us at the Minnesota Star Tribune stage. My name is Laura Yuen. I'm a features columnist here, and wow, I am just, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for supporting local journalism. Well, the person joining me today needs no introduction. Alan Page is a Minnesota treasure. Obviously, you know he is a Pro Football Hall of Famer, and as one of the Minnesota Vikings Purple People Eaters, he played in no less than 4 Super Bowls and was also the first defensive player to be named the NFL's MVP. Now, this is the part that's mind-boggling. When he was still a pro athlete, he started a second career in law, and of course that led to his election to the Minnesota Supreme Court. But Alan Page is much more than that. He's a Minnesota Renaissance man. He and his late wife, Diane, started the Page Education Foundation, which has awarded thousands of scholarships to students of color who are interested in post-secondary education. He was honored with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the highest honor awarded to civilians in the nation. And he's also a maple syrup maker, a children's book author, a marathoner, a collector of African American artifacts, a kayaking enthusiast, a sousaphone player, and so much more. Let's welcome to the Minnesota Star Tribune stage a Minnesota icon, a living legend, Justice Alan Page. And so,
do I have to live up to that?
You do. Effortlessly, I'm sure. And keep your questions handy because we'll give plenty of time for a question and answer. But I just want to kick off by thanking you again for being here today, and noting that this beautiful piece of crop art was done by one of your former Page scholar, who's joining us here today, Juventino Mesa. Juve, you are an inspiration to so many people. You've been an advocate for immigrant rights for as long as you've been here. And Justice Page, what is it like to know that somebody you invested in as a young person has now become a lawyer, passed his bar this year, and is now serving the community?
Well, our Page scholars are phenomenal human beings, and through one of the requirements for their financial grant is service. And through their service, they're changing the future, making it better and brighter for all of us. And so I couldn't be more proud. We talk about heroes and role models. Our Page scholars are my heroes.
I want to talk about that service because from what I understand, the Page scholars, as part of their agreement, they're asked to mentor other young people. Why did you and your late wife, Diane, think that was so important?
50 hours per academic year while they're going to school. It's important because, we talk about heroes and role models. The people who influence us are people we can reach out and touch. And what better role model for education than people who are in school using education to make their futures better? What better opportunity to have them influence young children so that those young children can see a future that maybe they couldn't see before?
What do you think are the biggest barriers to education for young people of color today?
I think the barriers to education for students of color, but also for poor students generally. It's not just students of color, it's rural students who are not in wealthy families. We seem to be focused on, how do I say this, educating by the numbers and not individuals. I mean, education is about people. It's not about producing widgets. And we have to figure out how to educate the individual child as opposed to what we're doing now, because what we're doing now doesn't work, hasn't worked, and leaves far too many young people behind.
I want to talk about some of your hobbies because they are very wide-ranging. One of our photographers visited you up north at your cabin in
Yes.
Outing, Minnesota, and you are quite an enthusiast of making maple syrup, making gallons of maple syrup a year. And I remember this beautiful picture of you behind a just billowing steam coming off the pot as you're boiling the sap off it. Just how did you get into making maple syrup, and why do you do it?
Well, first of all, anybody who loves maple syrup would love to make it because the smell, the finished product, when you get to take a little, dip a little finger in the pot, when you're finished, it just doesn't get any better. I came to it because of Diane. She about, I don't know, 10, 12, no, maybe, I guess it was 2013, 2014. She saw some people making it one day and said, we should do that. And so here I am today. I can remember the first time we tried it. We collected, I think, our first boil was about 13 gallons of syrup. And by the time we were done, we had what seemed like a thimbleful. But it was the best maple syrup that we'd ever had. And we've been doing it ever since. This past year, we ended up with almost 6 gallons of syrup. And you know, now my mind's starting to wonder. It's making me think of pancakes and waffles.
I'm sure we can find something for you here at the Minnesota State Fair.
But can you find the syrup? That's the question.
Probably not as tasty as yours.
The syrup is the magic. And, you know, anybody can do it. If you have a maple tree or maple trees and, you know, you stick the tap in, the sap comes out, you collect it, and you boil it. And you boil it until it reaches roughly 7 degrees Fahrenheit above the point of boiling water, and you've got syrup. It's that simple. But there's really nothing like sitting behind, you talked about that steam, sitting there and smelling it and anticipating the finished product. There's just simply nothing like it.
Sounds almost meditative for you.
It is meditative.
And you know, some of the best things in life do require that sustained effort and patience. So I think that's a good metaphor for what you've done with your life.
It takes a lot of patience because, you know, when you're trying to get it to 219, 220 degrees, and it's been stuck at, it's interesting, it gets stuck at about 210 degrees for hours. And hours later, you're still there, and, you know, 3/4 of it is gone. And finally, it creeps up to 211. And then another half an hour later, it's 212. And it goes like that until it gets to the desired temperature.
So you got to just keep watching that. And you also turned 80 this month, so happy birthday, Justice Page.
Thank you, thank you.
If there seems to be a constant theme in your life, I think the word curiosity is right there, right up there. You know, as you get older, I think some of us think that learning something new is just for kids, but you've obviously defied that. How do you stay curious?
You know, learning something, I mean, every day is something new. And it's the adventure in life. I was married, just as an example, I was married to Diane for 45 years, and I learned something new from her every day. And life is like that. I mean, new experiences, we sometimes think we've done it all, seen it all, know it all, but we really haven't.
So while you were studying, while you were playing in the NFL, you began to study law at the University of Minnesota. I just
Yes.
am so impressed by that. How in the world did you do that? What did that look like?
You know, there's no magic to it. It's it's really just a function of time management. And yes, I played professional football while I went to law school, but there are lots of people who go to law school while they're working, while they're working day jobs, real jobs where they're, don't get 6 months of the year off. They're at work every day, and then they're at school in school at night. Um, I don't. People think it was something miraculous, and maybe it was in my case. But the reality is that we can do the things that we set our minds to. We have the ability to do things that maybe we don't necessarily like to do, that at times are hard. But if it wasn't hard, what would be the point? If there wasn't a challenge, why do it?
Over the years, you've been known to cheer on the Twin Cities marathoners while playing the sousaphone, of course, a natural instrument to play when you're watching a marathon.
Let's be clear. We're using the word play very loosely.
You sounded pretty good to me.
I make noise with the sousaphone.
Well, there is a saying among tuba players, you don't pick up the tuba picks you. And, I think the thinking is this is such a unique instrument that it just attracts players for whatever reason. So how did you pick up the sousaphone?
Actually, as I sit here and think about it, it chose me. I was in 7th or 8th grade in middle school, in back then it was junior high school, and I wanted to be in the band, so I joined the band, and I didn't have a particular I hadn't played any instruments before that. I had some piano, but no other instrument. And given my size, the band leader said, we have this big instrument. Here's somebody who maybe could carry it. And so it chose me.
And we're all the better for it. So did you play continuously, or did you give it up and pick it up again?
I played 7th, maybe 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and then didn't really pick it up again until actually about the year I was making my first, seeking my first term on the Minnesota Supreme Court. I don't know what made me do it, but I thought, I like playing tuba, the sousaphone, but who's got a sousaphone, right? Nobody's got one to sort of in their backyard or in the basement, and so I went out and bought one, and have been toying with it since then.
Did it just come right back to you?
Some of it did. Remember making noise with it, not playing it.
So it's obviously very clear that education is important to you, and I heard that your parents are the ones that instilled that
Yes.
that lesson. How did they do that, and how did they make sure you got a good education?
They made clear to me, my brother and sisters, that if we were going to have a better life than they had, we had to be educated. And growing up in the 1950s in Canton, Ohio, being a young African-American male, the prospects for somebody like me were at best limited, and they understood that education was a tool that you could use to overcome whatever obstacles might be placed in your way.
And you've inspired so many people because you were the first in many ways. You were the first black justice on the state Supreme Court. You were the first black Minnesotan to hold statewide office. You played football at Notre Dame when there were just a handful of black athletes on the team. What advice do you have for people who are often the only ones on the field or in the classroom or in their profession that look like them or feel like they don't belong?
You know, first of all, I would say you do belong. If you didn't belong, you wouldn't be there. Beyond that, seek excellence. Whatever success I've had, and for me, success is in the journey, not necessarily the destination, but whatever success I've had is grounded in this belief that when you seek excellence for the sake of excellence, you can hopefully achieve your highest self. And in doing that, the rest of it will take care of itself. You don't have to live up to somebody else's expectations.
That could be a lot of pressure.
Well, not only that, but I've found that when you're trying to live up to somebody else's expectations, you're really placing limits on yourself. And when you seek to find your highest self, there are no limits, because you're constantly trying to find that highest self. Whereas when you're focused on somebody else's standards, once you reach it, then what?
If you have any questions, why don't you come up close to me so I can mic you? And we can even start a line if you want to start a line right here. In 2013, you and your daughter Cammie came out with a new picture book called Alan and His Perfectly Pointy, Impossibly Perpendicular Pinky.
Yes.
Do you want to show the audience your pinky finger today?
I should introduce you to Alan's perfectly pointy, impossibly perpendicular pinky. And my daughter was just sitting there, but my co-author was just sitting there. I should introduce you to her. She's been just a fantastic partner in this book writing enterprise that we've kind of fallen into. We've had a whole lot of fun.
What is the story behind the pinky, and why did you write about it?
Well, the book it's interesting. The book is titled Alan and His Perfectly Pointy, Impossibly Perpendicular Pinky. But the pinky is, there's Cammie, my daughter Cammie.
The
Co-author. The pinky is just sort of one of the characters in the book.
Oh, okay.
The book is really about young student Booker, who everybody in the class thinks is, is that kid that's always doing the wrong thing or getting in trouble. And we wrote the book to make the point that, everybody has something to contribute. Even those kids who we think aren't necessarily the best or the brightest. And in the book, Booker becomes the sort of the hero. And Booker kind of relates to the pinky.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, it looks like we do have some questions here. So why don't you just state your name and your question?
Hi, Laura. Hi, Alan. Mike Erickson from Maplewood. Alan, I'm a longtime runner, 9-time marathoner. Tell us how you got into running and how many marathons you did. You're a big inspiration to a next generation of runners.
Well, thank you. I started running, actually Diane and I started running back in 1975 or 76. We had some friends. This was back before marathoning and running was the big activity that it is today. We had some friends who had started running, and up to that point, I'd never run anywhere. Wouldn't run across the street if I had to, if a car was coming. Um, but we were in Hawaii for the super teams competition, and we started going for walks every morning. And during those walks, we'd run a little bit and walk a little bit. Eventually, we came back home, and slowly but surely, I started running a half mile, a mile, built up to 3 miles. Diane started, she couldn't make it a quarter of a mile. I tell this story that when I finally got to the point of being able to run 5 miles, we had this friend that said, if you can run 5, you can run 10. So we're going to go on this 10-mile run, which was double anything that I'd done. And Diane decided to come along with us. By this time, she was running maybe 2 or 3. We set off around Lake of the Isles, over to what was then Lake Calhoun, now Bidet, McCoska, over to Harriet. And by the time we got halfway around Harriet, the friend that we were running with, he and I were running alone. Diane was so far ahead of us that she was sending messages back to us with people coming back the other way. Would you tell those 2 guys to hurry up? From there, back in 1979, I decided I was going to give my first marathon a try. And went to Grandma's and ran that first marathon. And when I was done, I promised myself that I would never, ever run another one. Never. Well, it was another 3 years before I ran another one, but I ran about, I don't know, a total of maybe 10. I ended up running the Edmund Fitzgerald 100K. Don't ever think about running a race named after a ship that's in the bottom of Lake Superior. When I was done, I was done. Once was enough. But I know people who run multiples. I marvel at their tenacity. We both fell in love with running. It became a time where we could share time together. It was kind of our playtime. It was a time to get out of the house and get some fresh air. And seeing the world on foot is different than seeing it in a car.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's like night and day. You can pass the same place every day in a car, go by it once on foot, and you see so much more. And so have loved the outdoor activity. Unfortunately, my running days are in my rear view mirror, but I walk every day.
You're
I
still
get out
walking,
and
wow.
Walk as
Amazing.
well, every day. Some people would say I'm obsessed.
Great question.
Susie, I'm from St. Paul. This will be my 9th marathon this year and probably the last time that I do Twin Cities. Are you going to be out on the course this year?
What is it? The first Sunday in October. We'll look forward to seeing you there. on the corner of Douglas and Knox.
Will you have your sousaphone?
I sure hope so.
Hi.
Hi, Justice Payne.
Hi.
I actually was in training camp with you in 1977 and 78. I wasn't an athlete. I was a janitor, but I worked for Mankato State University and worked for 2 training camps. And I was wondering, do you have any memories of those training camps in Mankato?
I do. They were hot. They were hard. They were long. But, the people in the Mankato community were very supportive of us. They were generous and kind and put up with, at times, 100 crazy young men with nothing to do but pound on each other during the day, and for the little bit of time we had free at night, we weren't always the best of citizens. We weren't bad, but we weren't always the best. We probably had, even though we were very active, we probably had a little too much energy.
Do you have a story there that you'd like to share?
Oh, I think I won't. Maybe we'll talk about the rockets. We would build toy rockets and shoot them off next to Gage Hall.
Sure. One more follow-up question.
Justice Page, I heard that Bud Grant wasn't so crazy about you jogging and losing weight while you were doing that. I actually remember seeing you one time in a park. It was, I think, 77, 78 in Mankato, jogging after hours. So, but we heard he wasn't crazy about you taking up jogging.
Is that true? Bud Grant was not a fan of you running?
I think that's probably a fair statement, yes.
'Cause you were losing weight.
I was losing, I actually started losing weight. It was the running. It was also a change in diet. Diane and I changed our diet in ways that we thought was healthier for us. That was something also that was kind of underlying the running, that at the time, the average life expectancy for professional football players was 55. Reaching the age of 55 was sort of the end of the line. And that didn't seem like the best thing in the world for me, so I thought I needed to change my lifestyle in terms of eating and exercise, and hopefully I would be able to beat those odds. And it turned out I've been fortunate enough to have been able to do that. But yes, he was not a fan. And, you know, having been, well, I'm not going to go there. We'll just leave that one alone.
Well, I think it's worth noting that you were constantly, your whole life you've been fighting for things, you know, fighting for justice, fighting for the, as a member of the Players Union, you were fighting for free agency, and I think you were the first player to grow a beard. So I really appreciate all that you've done to chart your own path, even if it meant going against the grain.
Well, I've always had a strong sense of who I am, what I think is important, and a sense of obligation to do the things that I could to make this world a better place, and to hopefully leave it better than when I arrived in it.
If anyone has any questions, please come up. That's a wonderful note. I mean, you know, you've lived so many lives, Hall of Famer, education advocate for justice, and a justice yourself. When people think of Alan Page, what do you hope that they'll remember the most?
I hope they will remember that before all of that, I was a husband and a father and a grandfather, and that I was fortunate enough to find the love of my life in Diane, and that we did, both her and I, because none of the things that I've done, quite frankly, none of the things that any of us do, we do alone. There's always somebody there to support us, to help us, to allow us and encourage us to do the things that we do, that we work to, as I said, make this world a better place.
And we can say without a doubt you definitely did that.
Well,
Thank you so much, Justice Alan Page.
Well, hopefully it's still a work in progress.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
What an honor.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for all your support over the years.